What's going on, Legionnaires, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. And if you're new to the channel, do me a favor and hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, and make sure you're not missing any of the content that we have coming out. Now, for today's video, we're going to be diving into Infinite Frontier, The Joker, issue number 1. Now, for those that don't know, Infinite Frontier is the next step for DC Comics. And if you didn't check out Infinite Frontier issue number 0, I'll leave a link in the description as well as the top of this video. That way you can get completely caught up on everything that is going on so far. And be sure to tune in a little bit later today as we cover Wonder Woman and Superman, both continuing on their lines into the Infinite Frontier. And with that being said, let's dive into this issue. Alright, so this issue starts us off with a prologue. A prologue titled Boogeyman. And throughout this entire story, it's all narration from Jim Gordon. Now, Jim is reminiscing of a time when he was at Abernathy's bar. And this specific night was his last night in Chicago. He had just got done taking down some dirty cops, and as a kind of reward, he was given a promotion, but also sent to Gotham PD. But really, it's more of a slap in the face. It was a way to get rid of him and hopefully Gotham would take care of him. Because, especially, in the policing world, there is a tight-knit brotherhood. And breaking that bond of brotherhood gets you shunned, much like what is happening to Jim Gordon right now. And this is when he has a conversation with the bartender, Danny Ryan. And Danny asks a really particular question here. He asks Jim if he's ever able, or if he's old enough to have caught his boogeyman. And at first, Jim doesn't understand this question. It really baffles him. And he does give up a response, but it's not the response that Danny is looking for. Jim Gordon, he does have the experience of war. He has seen traumatic things. But in war, there's a specific type of knowledge that people know. We have been going to battle for as long as people have ever existed. And there's some kind of sixth sense to that, which is true. Speaking as a combat veteran myself, I agree 100%. Because he goes on to say that seeing horrors at home are so much worse. Seeing it in your streets. Seeing that barbarism come to a place where you feel safe. A place that's supposed to be civilized. And so as in its own way, it's traumatic and in a completely different sense. And then Danny asks him if he believes in evil. And he goes on to tell him, you're so young that you can't understand all of this. This is all a hypothetical to you. It's a game to be won. And you're just a kid playing cops and robbers. And he continues on, telling him of a story of when he was just a few years older than what Jim is right now. When he first saw the devil. Now this devil was eating the face off of a 17-year-old girl. And when he saw Danny, he smirked and offered him up a piece of this girl. Now he drew his gun on him and he told him to drop the knife. But the individual started manically laughing and then threw the knife into his leg and he escaped. And he never caught up with him, never got another lead. But every night when he closed his eyes, he saw him sitting there, holding that piece of meat up to him. And the point of telling this story is to let Jim know that there's the law, there's respecting the system, serving and protecting ordinary people, keeping them safe. This is important to Jim and he knows that. He even respects him for this. But there's the law and then there's evil. And when you see evil, you aim for the head. And Jim just stares at him, not really knowing what to say, but just tells him goodnight and heads out the door. And it wouldn't be for years until he really understood that he was trying to give him a warning. Because now Jim Gordon sees the devil every night when he closes his eyes. And his devil is none other than the Joker. And so this is where we pick up in present day at Arkham Asylum, what now many are referring to as A-Day. Because what do you call the death of nearly 500 patients, nurses, healthcare providers, and security guards in the deadliest attack in the history of the United States? Everybody here just calls it A-Day. Now, we saw this transpire. We saw the gas flooding this, and we saw Sean Mahoney rescue 2 or 3 nurses and barely make it out of there alive. Now, they don't know a whole lot yet, but they do know that this is an altered version of the classic Joker toxin formula, but nobody laughed. And so it was able to spread from room to room without detection. Now, the Batman had beat most of the police officers there, but the mayor's directed his men to arrest Batman on sight. And so he's been keeping his distance, for the most part at least. Now, the exact death toll is really unknown at this point, and Mahoney's actions had caused part of the asylum to burn and destroy all of the security footage of what actually transpired. But it's believed to be between somewhere 50 and 100 patients that escaped before Batman arrived. Now, there are some presumed dead, like Jeremiah Arkham and Jonathan Crane, as well as 100 other less colorful patients, if you will. But there is one very notable character that died in this, and that is the death of Bane. And overnight, makeshift flags go over parts of the city, and we see vigils and murals painted in honor of Bane. Because while he may have been very destructive to the city, he was also a symbol of strength. But Jim Gordon, he thinks to himself, out of all of the individuals he presumes dead, he believes this death to be the least likely, and he asked the coroner to examine Bane's body, but he was denied access to it. So that's a very intriguing point that I hope, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be diving into as this story progresses on. Now, Jim Gordon heads off to meet up with the mayor, and the mayor lets him know some information that he was already told 2 days ago by Batman. And that information is that the Joker was seen leaving the asylum before he disappeared. And so they're assuming that he had planted these bombs before he left. And then we pick up in Jim Gordon's apartment, and he has a message on his phone from Harvey Bullock, wanting to go into private practice with him, because Jim Gordon's on the brink of retiring, or at least he wants to retire. He keeps telling himself that he's ready for the retirement life. But the idea of private security really isn't something that tickles his fancy. The idea of photographing cheating spouses all the time doesn't appeal to him, especially after the things he's done in his life. It's just not something he wants to do. He wants to do something good with his life. Barbara tells him to close his eyes and picture the future that he wants for himself. But every time he closes his eyes, all he can hear is laughter. And when he opens them, he doesn't see much difference, because he sees teenagers walking around with Punchline t-shirts and photographs and autographs, people wearing clown masks in front of City Hall shouting for her release, young punks of the city taking to masking themselves to look like clowns to intimidate other citizens. Things have just been getting more and more out of hand, and everywhere he looks, he is seeing his devil, be it real life or his imagination. But Jim Gordon is just so broken right now because of the Joker, because of everything he's done, from hurting Barbara to instigating his son's death. These are things that haunt him. These are the demons that weigh him down. And we see some amazing freaking artwork right here in front of James Gordon Jr.'s headstone, and all he can think about is how he's lost his son, and every time he closes his eyes, he hears the devil laughing at him. And as he goes to leave this place, he's met by a blonde woman, asking him to get in the car because they would like to talk about the Joker. And this is where we pick up at a giant, beautiful mansion, and we learn that this is a place belonging to a friend of the family's. But she doesn't want to disclose which family she belongs to, saying that it's all very sensitive and wants to expose herself as least as possible. But she says that she can be called Cressida. Now they make their way through this building, but Jim Gordon really wants to get to the point. And so she pulls out some pictures and asks him to take a look at them. And it's the Joker in Belize, stealing a private jet, killing the pirates and leaving them for dead, It had been chartered from a private airfield outside of Gotham. Now, this wasn't a commercial airline flight. It was owned by one of the family friends. And the flight was never meant to be on the radar of the government. And so there's no real registered flight plan with air traffic control or anything of that nature. And so Jim asks, why am I here? What need do you have from me? And she lets us know that the people she represents thinks that the Joker has reigned his terror on Gotham for far too long. And rather than wait for another attack, they would rather get a step ahead and take Joker off the board completely. And they thought that Jim Gordon would be the perfect man to hunt the Joker down. And at first he's shocked, but she lets him know like he has the expertise to hunt Joker, almost better than anybody else. He's nearly killed one of his children and instigated the death of another. So they can only imagine the resentment that he has built up against the Joker. And they know Batman has obviously been hunting him, but they prefer to stay outside the attention of the costume set the best they can. And plus, she doesn't believe that Batman would be for hire, which is true. And she goes on to tell him, Jim, like, you're getting older. Retirement is right around the corner. You're getting to your golden ages. Should you accept this, in addition to all of your private intelligence, we'll give you a bank card with unlimited spending for the duration of your mission. And then once you're done with your mission, we'll deposit $25 million into your personal bank account. And she lets him know, you have until the end of the week to give us a response. There'll be a plane taking off on Friday at this time, and if you're not there, we will take it as you don't want a part of this. And so Jim, asks for clarification. Do you want me to capture him and bring him back to Gotham for $25 million? And she tells him, no, you're misunderstanding. We could just put a bounty on him and have him brought in if that's what we wanted and work with authorities. But we want you to kill him. And then this is when we pick up in Belize. And we see a mansion full of people dead all over the place. And we see Joker reading a newspaper. Now, while it's showing us all of this, we're getting narration from Jim Gordon, talking about his decision, talking about what he might decide to do here. Because killing the Joker sounds like a good option. At this point, he's already started to see the face everywhere he goes. Every time he closes his eyes, he hears that laughter. He told himself every time that he would lock him up and that would be the end of it. But he always gets that call about him escaping. And then he got the call about Detective Ryan shooting himself in the head because he was never able to find his demon. He was never able to rid that voice in his head. And now Jim Gordon is getting closer and closer to the edge where he might actually decide to pull the trigger. Now, this is where it jumps us in to Punchline. More specifically, the trial of Punchline. Now, right now, Punchline is about to be going on trial, and it is extremely public affair. Most of the citizens are on her side, or a good amount of them are on her side. But she's going to be tried for all the crimes she committed and lives lost during her time as Joker's protege, known as Punchline. Now, we see the lawyers in the courtroom that are going against her on day one of the trial, and they keep waiting for witnesses to show up only for them to wind up dead, floating in a river or something of that nature. And so they're really running out of options here on people that could give testimony against Punchline. And then we pick up a few hours later with Bluebird, aka Harper, and they're talking about the specifics of the case and how they really can't pin anything to Punchline. At least not right now. But there might be something from back in the day, because everybody's looking at crimes that she's committed right now, and she's been pretty clean and able to get away with it. But stuff that she's done in the past when she was a college student, they may be able to find somewhere she made a mistake in her early days. And that's what they're going to try to use to get some charges against her. Then we pick up at Blackgate Penitentiary with Punchline in her cell on her bunk, talking with her bunkmate because she just received a card from the Queen of Spades, pretty much telling her like she requested audience with her and it's not an option. She needs to come do it or else kind of thing. And Punchline being herself just like, yeah, alright, well, let's go find out what this is all about. And she heads in there, and Punchline walks into the cell and is just like, who the do you think you are? And the queen tries getting up and tries getting tough with Punchline, and Punchline doesn't even hesitate and knocks the queen of spades right on her butt and just starts plowing away as her henchmen just sit by and just have no clue what to do in this situation. And then we pick up later that night with Bluebird getting ready to find out everything she can about the past of Punchline. And that will be where this issue ends. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Personally, I really did enjoy this issue. It wasn't so much about the Joker in this issue as it was about Jim Gordon and Jim Gordon's descent into wanting to kill the Joker, driving him to the point where he might actually do an evil act for the sake of good. And this is something he's obviously fought with for quite some time now. And he can only be so exhausted from him constantly escaping time and time again from Arkham Asylum. All the lives, all the families ruined. Jim Gordon is finally at a breaking point. And the trial of Punchline, I actually really did enjoy. Punchline's a fun character to watch, and it's fun to see her lose her temper. Now, with the Joker gone and her in jail, I wonder if they're going to bring her into her own, or if this is all part of Joker's plan to begin with. Because while his plans, may be psychotic, they're usually very methodical. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have not yet, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, because we got Infinite Frontier Wonder Woman and Infinite Frontier Superman coming to you later on this afternoon. And with that being said, until the next issue.